Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Divided Films, the podcast where audiences and critics disagree about movies and we pick a side. My name is JJ, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Keith.
Hello.
The very angelic Keith.
I'm trying to switch things up.
Rising to the heavens. And with us today, coming back to the podcast, are good friends, Colleen and Kyle. Welcome back, guys.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Good to see you guys again and bring you back on the pod. So today, we are here to talk about the 2008 comedy movie, Step Brothers, starring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly and directed by Adam McKay. This movie falls into the category of having a negative score from critics and a mixed to positive score from audiences. Rotten Tomatoes scores are as follows. Critics approve by 55%. Audiences approve by 69%, appropriately enough.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Eyebrows. And the critics' consensus: Step Brothers indulges in a cheerfully relentless immaturity that will quickly turn off viewers unamused by Ferrell and Reilly and delight those who find their antics hilarious. So there you have it. Not surprised that the critics are not really taking to Step Brothers. And I actually expected the audience score to be a little higher than the 69% approval. But I think that the 69% of audiences who do approve love it. Like, they are really into it. Like, their score should count double, because this movie has a very, passionate fan base. So, tell me, was this a movie you guys were on board with when you had first seen it when it came out in 2008?
So I personally was a big Will Ferrell fan back in the day. Anchorman had been my favorite movie in high school. And then I was very excited about this one, and it just never hit for me. It just seemed like another one where Will Ferrell was playing, a wacky character.
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely saw it. I just don't really remember it. I know the memes, I know the quotes, but I don't think it's anything I ever felt super compelled to, rewatch over and over again. It's a nice trip down memory lane.
So maybe not as much of a standout Will Ferrell movie as, like you said, something like Anchorman.
Yeah. Well, I'm also biased because I was an extra in Blades of Glory, so.
Oh, yes, that's right.
We're talking to a celebrity.
That's right.
Yeah. We're only, separated from Will Ferrell by a couple degrees here.
Not to brag, but he licked the face of the woman in front of me, so.
Oh, wow, so close.
I just wish it was yours.
I know.
So close to that Will Ferrell.
I could have vicariously licked Will Ferrell.
What could have been so close? What about you, Keith? What's your history with Step Brothers?
This is a sentence I never thought I would say. I am the 69%. I absolutely love this movie. My history with it, and I mentioned it before, and I can't remember the episode, is the one summer where we only had stars on our TV. They played 3 movies. Oh, it was our Across the Universe episode, because the stars played maybe 2 times a day. Across the Universe, Con Air, and Step Brothers.
What a combo.
I know.
Very specific demographic they were going after.
The Holy Trinity. But Step Brothers, even if that summer did not happen, this movie, look, it's in his top 10. It's not Anchorman, but it hits all the right. It's absurd. It's non sequitur. It deals a lot in non sequiturs, which is one of the gateways to my humor. It's so goofy and does not take itself seriously, and it was such a delight to see this movie again.
Yeah, absurd is definitely a movie a word I associate with this movie, because this movie and other Will Ferrell, Adam McKay movies, so also Anchorman, like Talladega Nights. I feel like these movies exist in some universe where there's like a combination of normal people and absurd people, but like the normal people are just used to the absurd people. So like sometimes like they just go along with the crazy antics. Other times they're like shocked or confused. Other times they go along with it. It's like, and Will Ferrell is always like one of the absurd people. When this movie first came out, I kind of didn't get it at first. I was like initially more turned off by how overly immature the main two characters were. But then the more I would catch it, like on TV, for example, the more it grew on me. And the more I would appreciate what Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly were doing, just sort of like they just came up with this concept to let their comedy wings fly, I guess, basically, right? They're kind of just unleashed and are like so uninhibited in this movie that, okay, like maybe not all of it works, but I just appreciate just like the raw energy they're putting into this because they're so like reckless and destructive in this movie that you kind of just have to. For me, I just gave in, and the more I watched it, the more I liked it.
I completely forgot that they bring the Christmas tree into the room in the middle of the day sleepwalking, and that's just what I think of when I hear destructive.
Yeah, oh my gosh, like that is like the peak of their destructiveness. The most destructive sleepwalking, which by the way, like also the most unrealistic
Can't wake them up.
sleepwalking.
Can't wake them up.
Like they are very like, and that's the other thing I find so funny too is basically Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly's characters are like the same character. They're like exactly the same.
Yeah.
They both sleepwalk and are crazy. They both love cable television.
So entitled.
They both. Yeah, they're both super immature and spoiled. Like, I think it's funny, and I also thought it was funny that they hate each other at first because they're the same person.
Oh my! Even they watching this movie for the umpteenth time, they're funny, but the support everyone in this movie gets like I don't know, like Adam Scott, Mary Steenburgen, Richard Jenkins, Katherine Hahn, even like the supporting cast in this movie shines. I don't know. It's
Adam Scott.
This movie just lets everyone run wild, and Adam McKay really knows how to. He got it.
We were saying earlier that like I thought Adam Scott was like probably my favorite part in this movie because I mean his ability to play like completely different roles. He's like so likable in Parks and Rec, and he plays such a great douche in this.
Yeah.
The best introduction.
The predecessor
yeah.
Place.
This is just a few years before he got on Parks and Rec, and yeah, he's definitely playing like another really absurd character. But it's funny. We actually, this is our second movie in a row that has both Adam Scott and Katherine Hahn. We talked about last week The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and they're both in that.
And Adam Scott's also an asshole in that.
He is, but in that one, he's playing more of what is more like a down-to-earth jerk in a sort of way, and it doesn't work as well. Here, he is such like a cartoony bully that I totally find it hilarious.
What was it? The scene where the introduction where they're singing in the car is something that I used to sing with a couple of my friends in college all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And also that Dane Cook line.
Oh yeah, Dane Cook is on an hour. Let's go.
Dane Cook, pay-per-view, 20 minutes. Let's go.
That's the most 2008 sentence right there.
Yeah, very of its time.
He also has such absurd like name drops every once in a while. He's like, yeah, I was at like a New Year's party with Chad Michael Murray, and then there's another one. He's like talking about like I was hanging out with Seal,
Mark Cuban,
Chris Daughtry.
Yeah, Chris Daughtry.
When he lifts up his shirt, he's like, "When you get abs like that is I love that." That joke always makes me laugh.
I rub these things down with coconut oil after every shower.
What I also got a kick out of too was he does this really douchey thing where he abbreviates everything, right? It's like I don't know. He's talking about selling the house. He's like, oh, I won't charge any commish. Like everything is like some really lame abbreviation of a word.
He said, I'll do it
like,
for shits and gigs.
shit. I got my lice for shits and gigs, no commish. I'm like, oh man, this is like so perfect.
Oh, the hugging scene at the end where him and Will Ferrell try and hug for the first time.
Oh yeah, I mean this movie definitely practiced stuff a lot of physical comedy, and also like not just like the big moments when things are getting destroyed, but like the awkward moments too. Will Ferrell has several awkward sort of hugs that
with Richard Jenkins.
Yeah. But just I feel like he does it almost in a way that the actors are unprepared for. Like when he's kind of gonna hug Richard Jenkins or another character, it's just I can almost tell the actors are almost unprepared for like Will Ferrell's awkwardness that he's forcing on them.
You don't have to call me Mr. Doback. Okay, Doback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking too, as much as like Mary Steenburgen in this movie, she's right that Mary Steenburgen or Bergen.
I think it's
Bergen.
Mary
my mistake. I'm sorry. I'll just call her Mary. Marion Doback.
Which is funny because she's also his mother in Elf.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
In fact, some people think that this is like a continuation of Elf.
I've heard that.
That like between movies of Elf and Step Brothers, I guess like she divorced James Caan and he got the son, and like Buddy the Elf stayed with Mary Steenburgen, and then like that's where they are now, and he's still like a very immature adult. So I kind of like that idea a little bit.
I want to read into that theory.
That's so good.
And
it kind of works perfectly.
Yeah.
We also looked up. Apparently, she's only like 14 years older than him.
Of course.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, Will Ferrell is like a little up there. He's a middle-aged man, and Mary Steenburgen is not that old.
Yeah, and that's the only thing about this movie I find to be unrealistic.
That's it. Everything else spot on. I did think to myself too, like this mom, as sweet as she is as a character, she raised two monster children.
Yeah.
She could not have been that good of a mom if that's how these kids turned out.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, as the therapist says at the end, you're an enabler, and you're a keeper. You're a keeper. The fact that this movie has no no serious arc, I'll take. Like it doesn't end on this. Like one movie that came to mind that and comedy movies can tend to do this. They kind of lapse in the third act, and the movie that came to mind is Wedding Crashers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do enjoy Wedding Crashers. It's a really funny movie, but it kind of the roller coaster goes down, except for Will Ferrell's cameo. But it kind of goes down. It becomes an actual like movie. And this one goes all the way up with the fucking Catalina Wine Mixer. I love it.
Yeah, the energy does not go down at all at any point really in the movie. Even like, when you get to like the family like falling apart towards the end of the second act, like it's still like balls to the wall energy. It's still crazy. It doesn't have like a sad sort of like, oh no, they're gonna be divorced now. It's like that. Just like. You're not really invested in the story from like, you're concerned about this family point of view. You're kind of like, I the more I watch, the more I enjoy like the dad's mental spiral as these two monster children just continue to make his life miserable.
You destroyed my boat, you goon.
Okay, will you just shut up and tell us if you're going to invest or not?
I thought it was so funny too that in their music video, they kept the footage of the boat crashing. Like, this is clearly an edited video, but yet they included the boat crashing in the final edit of the music video.
I think I recognized that the first time I watched it.
It's like, what? Why did they keep this in?
The artistic decision.
Yeah, that was like, oh, okay.
See, this movie brings joy to people, and I've met people who do not like Will Ferrell's humor. I can understand people not if you don't like Will Ferrell's humor, you're definitely not liking this movie.
Oh, this is like all him. I know he wrote the story with the director Adam McKay, but I definitely feel like this was like him being like the driving force behind this movie. So yeah, like if this is kind of like an ode to like him and his fans, he already had established a big fan base. And even if like, like you guys were saying, you're fans of Anchorman, his past movies, but you weren't as crazy about Step Brothers, at least like that would get you in the theater. The fact that this is like a Will Ferrell movie.
Definitely.
Let's play a game. All right. On the count of 3, name your favorite dinosaur. Don't even think about it. Just name it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Velociraptor.
Favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to.
Good Housekeeping.
If you were a chick, who's the one guy you would sleep with?
John Stamos.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yep.
His 2000s were pretty, like, it started off with Zoolander, and I think that's like early, like 2000 on the dot. But
2001.
2001, then like Anchorman really kind of.
Oh, even before Anchorman though, Old School. That's
true.
2003, I think, right before Elf, and that was like him really. I feel like coming into what we would know him as, this Frank the Tank, we're going streaking, this like crazy guy, and I feel like that kind of persona would just perpetuate over his next few movies.
I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like it was Elf, Old School, and like Zoolander. I think were the first 3, and then was like Anchorman the one that came after that.
Anchorman was 2004, and I think that is really what solidified him as a comedic powerhouse, right? Because it was a huge hit, and even though he had other big hits before that, there was something about Anchorman that just seemed to be like so much bigger in terms of like, it was like an instant classic when that movie comes out, right? And everyone's quoting it, everyone loves that one. So I think from that point on, people just are like, oh, you think of comedic actors, you think of Will Ferrell. He was like automatically like the most popular comedic actor at the time for the next several years.
I always think like Old School, he was playing a specific role. Elf, he was clearly playing a specific role. In Zoolander, he's playing a specific role. But in like Anchorman, he was just kind of acting like a doofus, and I felt like that kind of like persona carried through to like all the other roles for like the span of like 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. Like again, like Talladega Nights, Step Brothers. Although actually, then after this movie, he comes out a couple years later with The Other Guys.
Yeah, that's kind of a different role. That's like a doofus, that's like a different kind of doofus.
Yeah,
it's a dweeb.
The confidence isn't there.
Yeah, he's like a robot in that movie.
That's another great, basically the same team of McKay and Ferrell of just the absurdity.
Yeah. But he does play a different kind of character. And actually, I really liked him being paired with Mark Wahlberg in that movie. I thought Mark Wahlberg is so great at reacting to crazy shit that, pairing with Will Ferrell was genius.
I do want to say, just throw it in there, The Campaign, I would feel like, is in this realm. And I really loved that one because that one just, like, consistently got more and more absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about The Campaign, actually.
Underrated one.
Yeah. Him and Zach Galifianakis. I think, because in that movie, they're both crazy, right? As opposed, that kind of had maybe a similar energy to Step Brothers, where he's paired with someone who's also like a similarly absurd character.
Galifianakis is basically playing Terry. Like, he has his mustache. He's not playing like he's not playing the Hangover kind of Zach Galifianakis. He's playing his twin brother almost.
Yeah. And I think I think after like the mid 2010s, Will Ferrell didn't really have as many big hits anymore. I think a huge step back for him was the Sherlock Holmes movie he did with John C. Reilly, which was like so poorly received.
I never saw it.
Yeah, did you guys see that one?
I didn't, but it looked really bad. It got really bad reviews, and it looked like they were trying to still capitalize on that, like the same kind of chemistry that they had in this movie, Step Brothers, right? Like people were, that movie had this movie, Step Brothers. People like who did love this movie loved the two of them together, so it seemed like they were trying to go for the same kind of appeal in Holmes and Watson, I think it was called.
Sounds right.
The elevator pitch to that, like, I think when you read a synopsis, you read like, oh, they're making this movie, you're like, oh, that could be really good, and then you see the poster, you're like, it might be still good. Then you see the trailer, you're like, oh. I remember it being an awful trailer, and it's like I don't even think these are probably the funniest jokes that they're using, and then apparently they were right
in the trailer. Yeah, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Actually, I did see. Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say, Keith?
Did any of now one movie that I've heard mixed, like I've heard people who really enjoyed this movie. I think it came out during quarantine. Was when he plays like a Swedish guy with Eurovision. Okay, both of you guys are giving divided looks right now. One is smiling and one I'm not going to say who, but one is smiling and one isn't. But I've heard very mixed things. Literally, I've heard people who loved it and people who was like, I'm not even going to try.
I'd be down to get in on that Divided Films podcast, but I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
There are two songs because it's part musical because it's like a singing competition movie, and there are two songs that I love, and one of them specifically made it onto my most listened 2020 playlist on Spotify.
He listened to it all
Really?
the time.
Yeah.
One is nominated for an Oscar, so it might be that one.
I would presume. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I did see that one, but maybe I need to go back to it because I don't really remember much about it. Maybe I didn't really pay full attention to it.
Yeah.
But
I think it was one of those ones where you just kind of like are enjoying yourself, but you'll probably forget about this in like a week.
it was
also
That's
in the
Netflix's motto.
It was
That's
in the heart
Netflix's
of
Yeah,
movie
that's
motto.
true.
I was getting similar vibes to Blades of Glory just because I don't know, like they both seem to be set in like cold weather, I suppose, and like Will Ferrell is dressed very sort of like glam rock in a way.
That's true.
Right.
It was in the heart of the pandemic, so at that point it was more like if we get any new content and we can watch a full movie, we didn't have to pay for it, but it just felt like a slight step back into normalcy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I might revisit that one because I had it after the first time I saw it. And then actually, before Step Brothers, there was he had the span of like movies where his characters get progressively more crazy. But in 2006, he actually came out with this gem of a movie that I really love called Stranger Than Fiction.
I watched that.
I'm not sure if you guys know that one.
Excellent movie.
But I heard it was really good.
I remember thinking that was it was like I had never. It seemed like such a unique concept.
Yeah, it's really good, and Will Ferrell gives a very great and very reserved dramatic performance. So I find that so funny. In his career, he goes from like Ron Burgundy to like what's the guy in Talladega Nights? The character's name? Ricky Bobby, and then he's like this character Brennan. But in between, he plays like this like just regressed IRS like guy who has this beautiful arc, and it's like a really great movie. I would recommend people see Stranger Than Fiction, but that was 2006, right in the middle of this sort of like comedic streak he had going on.
It's his Truman Show almost.
I was gonna say.
Like, yeah.
The plot of that is that like a writer is basically writing a book, and all of the events seem to be like happening to Will Ferrell, and they're like all near death.
Yeah. Will Ferrell starts hearing like a narrator, and it turns out it's a narrator writing a book about him, and he has to find out who the narrator is because the narrator like foreshadows his death, so he has to like figure out who the narrator is and prevent her from writing his death, basically. So, but it's really good. That's like the logline premise. I'm not like spoiling anything. There's a lot more to it than that. So that one is like, I feel like it came and went, but people should like stick onto that one.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
I'd check that.
But and then John C. Reilly is an actor who is already known for both comedic and dramatic performances, right?
He's an incredible singer, right? I mean, he performed in Chicago. The movie Chicago.
Right. Yeah, you're right. He did sing in that. Actually, there is a funny like Oscar performance that they did. I don't know what year this was, but there's like a funny bit where at the Oscars one year, Will Ferrell is singing like a comedian at the Oscars is the saddest clown of all. And then Jack Black gets on stage, is like, hey, like, let's get revenge on these like dramatic actors for casting us out. And then John C. Reilly gets up and is like, you can be both dramatic and comedic. Look at me.
I chose to be both in Boogie and Talladega Nights.
Yeah, that's right. He is in Boogie Nights, right?
One of my favorite movies. Like he is. I think Talladega Nights was his first jump into comedy. I could be wrong, but he has mainly done, like, he was Kevin Bacon's thief buddy in The River Wild. He was Boogie Nights. He was Magnolia, Gangs of New York. He was mainly doing like prestige character acting. I think he was nominated for Chicago, and he did a total 180, and I think he's kind of stole the show in Talladega Nights. Him and Sacha Baron Cohen, and that kind of jump started theirs.
Yeah, and then he's in this, or he's like totally out of his mind in this movie. I mean, like, even I kind of liked him as a petulant child, even sometimes more than Will Ferrell, because like little moments, like when he's getting yelled at by the dad, and he's like, "Dad, how can you talk to me like that? I'm your son."
I'm not
like,
falling for that this time.
Yeah, like the manipulative things that like spoiled children do, and he totally gets it down perfectly.
I was looking back at my notes because I remembered I jotted something fun, interesting I thought down, and there was one thing I recognized that this is the second movie where Will Ferrell eats animal poop.
What was the first one?
So he obviously,
I believe
he eats the belly full of white dog poo, and then in Anchorman, when he says "screw you,
cat
San
poo.
Diego," exactly, Fred Armisen makes him eat the cat poop.
Yeah, you'll eat the cat poop.
I will not eat the cat poop.
That's right. He just licked the dog poop in this, right?
No,
he
he does say, "I got a belly full of white dog crap in me." You laid this shit on.
He seemed to get over it pretty quickly.
I also
he ate dog crap.
I also love. Why are you so sweaty? Oh, I was just watching Cops.
I know the Cops isn't on until 4:00. They're the same. They have the same TV schedule. These two guys. I have to say that house was like a really nice house.
They have the whole upper floor has that like balcony.
It's nice, and then like the sunken living room and like the paneling and everything. I'm like, oh man! And then they're constantly destroying the house that they're fighting. I'm like, geez, like I'd be upset too. This is a beautiful house they're ruining.
I also really loved when like when they first have their first dinner and they're eating chicken nuggets and they're both just like staring at each other over like dominance, and Will Ferrell's like, oh, I remember drinking my first beer. And then, like, John C. Reilly's like, oh, it's so funny. Last time I had laughed at that, heard that, I fell off my dinosaur. And then Will Ferrell just, like, starts crying.
Yeah. He loses that argument or that, like, battle of insults and starts crying. Were they eating, actually, was it dino nuggets they were eating?
They didn't seem standard.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They seem like they had little like shapes and like edges, so it would make sense because I mean, like as you know, I'm a dino nugget aficionado.
That's true.
Oh yeah, I mean for everyone out there, Colleen, Kyle, and I have been on a few Airbnbs and like getaways, and they've always included the dino nuggets, so we're familiar.
You can taste the dino.
Mm-hmm. But that's actually perfect too. I mean, like my 3-year-old niece will like demand nuggets for dinner in place of like what's been prepared, right? Like it's like that is such a perfect thing of like spoiled children to like eat nuggets for dinner instead of like what is actually prepared.
What's your favorite dinosaur? Velociraptor.
What were the other things they had in common? It was like
if you were a woman, who
list.
would you have sex with?
John Stamos.
John Stamos.
What's your favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to?
Good Housekeeping.
So dumb.
brilliant. That's what I'm saying. Like only there will only be one person in existence who has all of those things that they answer to. So the fact that there are two people, I'm like they're like clones of each other.
Watching Will Ferrell sing, let's give him something to talk about. And like everyone's like, he's the best singer.
Especially at the end, love, the acoustics, and I had a big lunch.
Yeah, when he's singing like "Time to Say Goodbye," that is like the ultimate like non sequitur sequence when you're getting these really bizarre fantasy sequences. That I totally get it. I mean, like this is like basically. Again, like from Anchorman, Talladega Nights, on Step Brothers, the absurdity increases with each movie, and it almost is like peak at that point where you're getting Will Ferrell bursting into his therapist's office as a lumberjack, and he's sporting like a huge erection on par with his Anchorman erection.
I've traveled 5,000 miles to deliver my seed.
Like, my God!
And that actress,
that
actress is from I'm Sorry, and also Hot Wives of Atlanta. She's really funny.
Yeah, she's
okay. Yeah, I knew I'd recognize that. I've probably seen her in bit parts in all different kinds of like sitcoms and stuff, like one-off appearances. And then the John C. Reilly fantasy with Catherine Hahn is what like. Wasn't one of them like some weird fantasy creature?
It was like a Lord of the Rings, like he's like a centaur.
It's kind of bow and arrow.
Funny enough, the one with Adam Scott is actually like kind of sentimental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like sweet. Although I can't help but notice, like in that childhood flashback, they're like basically the same age.
Yeah.
And by the way, they have like no resemblance to each other whatsoever.
Derek has
Wait, actually, hold on a second, because okay, it doesn't track obviously. Like this is not really a continuation of Elf. But if this Derek is like a jerk, is that who his like younger brother in Elf turned into?
It could be.
Maybe.
He'd have to age a lot.
I mean, he was a Jets fan, so I wouldn't be surprised if he turned out to be a royal douche as an adult. And if I offended any Jet fans, good. Anyway,
we don't need your support.
Our viewership just totally sinks from me.
I think the reason why John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell have to even get up on stage is why I love the humor in this movie is her, and I think this is only in the uncut, and I didn't realize I was watching the uncut. Is like Horatio Sands' band is like we only play 80s Joe, and you got a guy going like, he's like, play, we didn't start the fire. We only play 80s Joe.
Yeah, that's right. I love that's like a very specific cover band. 80s Joel.
He's like, get out of here and get your skate wife out of here. And we'll, oh no.
That's like if there was a cover band for Van Halen, but only after David Lee Roth left the band. It's like, what is the point?
And I gotta give this movie like top marks for comedic use of dogs, and that's something I noticed on this rewatch. Is anytime someone is running around outside, that blind guy's dog is like jumping on them. And when they're fighting, I even had to pause this. When they're fighting out in the lawn, there's like 8 dogs. Like some of them are on leashes, some of them aren't.
I was saying, I love how it's always the service dog. Like, you're so horribly trained.
He's able to. He uses that service dog when he's pretending to be a Nazi.
That's true.
That's
scare
right.
off potential homebuyers. I think that's so fun. I mean, like, it totally makes sense in the context of the movie that they dress up as a Nazi and a Klan member to scare off potential homebuyers. But anytime I see that, I see that, and I'm thinking to myself, what did people who are maybe driving by set think to themselves when they see Will Ferrell in like a Nazi suit?
That Nazi guy looks a lot like Will Ferrell, but it's obviously not. It couldn't be.
Well, Will Ferrell was also in the movie adaptation of The Producers, where he played a Nazi who wrote Springtime for Hitler.
I've never seen the new one. I've seen the original, which I thought was great.
Yeah. Well, the 2005 one is based on the stage musical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a bit different. What's funny about that too, quick little tidbit, in college I was in a production of The Producers, and just like in the ensemble, and we do in the second act, it's Springtime for Hitler, it's in the show, and like apparently the student who was bringing over parts of the costumes, which included the Nazi armbands, accidentally dropped them on the bus. Everyone on the bus saw.
That's almost directly from the movie The Pacifier.
Oh man, like what could you possibly say in that situation? But yeah, anytime you have like comedic use of like a Nazi or a Klan, like what do you say to someone when you're like getting ready and they don't know what you're doing?
There was in the movie The Pacifier with Vin Diesel, there's a character who's like gonna play in The Sound of Music, and they're like, oh god, we found the swastikas in his room, what is he getting into? And he's just going to play it in the musical.
Just your typical comedic misunderstanding.
Oh
boy. Yeah, so I'm trying to think the rest of the and then the other flashback, which is one of the best movie flashbacks of all time, is the Mangina sequence. That is just so classic. Like even when I wasn't totally on board with this movie when I first came out, I still loved that sequence. Brendan has a mangina, and like the old man who gets really into it. That's the best. That old guy who's actually getting up and he's like, "Fuck yeah!" He loves it. That's the best moment in the whole movie for me.
And the mom, like when she's describing the story, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it was awful." Everyone started singing it. Well, yeah, I had to join in a little bit too. But...
yeah, and then
some of the ruder parents got involved also.
And then they're describing how Derek won the contest by singing "Ice Ice Baby" and both
by lip syncing. By lip syncing it.
And then both the mom and the dad are like, well, it is a great song. yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, you're either if you're in tune to this movie's humor, it works in all the right ways.
Right. And I think that flashback sequence is just like a great sort of encapsulation of the movie's energy, right?
Yes.
In the best way. And maybe it can be a little too grating to get like a whole 90 minutes of that if that's not really your cup of tea, but just a little snippet of that I feel like can work for anybody.
So let's do this. You guys are hired. You're in, unless you're like the weirdest guys ever and I don't see it.
Great.
Was that a fart?
I don't know.
I can taste it on my tongue.
And actually, so the other thing I thought was interesting too was, during their interview sequences, one of the people they interview with is Seth Rogen, who, he has a cameo as one of the interviewers, which I thought was so like prophetic, because I always thought, I noticed that in the 2000s, comedies, like the biggest comedies were this like frat pack, like a loose combination of like Ben Stiller, Will Ferrell, Owen Wilson, Luke Wilson, Vince Vaughn, and some other people here and there. And then the next big comedic group to take over was like Seth Rogen's crew with like James Franco and Jonah Hill and stuff. So Seth Rogen appearing in this movie, I feel like is almost like a sort of passing of the torch in a way.
I could hear that.
That's a good observation.
I could definitely see that.
Well, Judd Apatow, I think I kind of forgot that he produced this movie.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because he kind of had his hands in all kinds of comedies.
Pleasure.
Keep that in. But anyways, he kind of had his hands in all kinds of comedies in the 2000s, even if he wasn't like the main creative force behind it. Keep that in too.
Well, now, is there a comedy? Has Seth Rogen and his crew passed the torch, or I don't think they're still going, right?
Well, the problem
is comedy even irrelevant? At least a comedy movie.
The problem is, and I saw a really interesting article about this in The Ringer years ago, that these sort of what are like mid-budget, like mid-level budget comedy movies don't really even exist anymore, right? So they're not like the most like expensive blockbusters, obviously, but they do have like I said, a mid-level movie budget because you hire like these like A-list stars. You just don't need any like big special effects or anything, and they would make a decent profit, right? So if this movie costs like $80 million to make, maybe it like would net a profit of like $200 or $300 million. Like, okay, decent chunk of change. But like, as much as I like the MCU Marvel movies, I feel like now studios are like, wait, if we can just make tons of movies that make $900 million, then why not just make those and like forget these mid-level budget movies? And I feel like that's kind of happened. You don't really get these kinds of movies like you did from like the 2000s and the mid 2010s. Those have kind of gone away.
That's true.
Or they all go to. I mean, I feel like you can.
You get like, indie comedies now.
You get indie like dramedies or comedies. I would put like Taika Waititi in that. I think like the last big budget movie or comedy was probably Game Night, and I could be wrong. That was a like I feel like every once in a while you get something like that with like Horrible Bosses or The Good Boys. But I watched. Did any of you guys watch Barb and Star?
I was about to say Barb and Star. Barb and Star.
That's Barb and Star go to Costa del Mar. That movie like attempts to be something like this, like a movie that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like we're quirky characters doing doing absolutely insane things.
They just crank up the kookiness. That first scene where they like do the drink and it has like the drugs in the end. That whole sequence was so great.
Was that? I'm not familiar with that one. Did that come out more recently?
It was.
That was like one of those like, what do we do with this? Do we put it in theaters? I think they released it on VOD.
I think you had to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it went.
Okay.
I think it went to video on demand, and I think it did remind me of like a movie from like, or at least like that feeling of the 2000s movies. These mid-level comedies that we don't really see that much anymore.
Yeah, because I feel like the great thing about those movies, maybe they're not the movies like, for example, like an Avengers movie that you wait like months to see, but like you're aware that they're coming out, you see the trailer, you get interested, and then it's like, what do you want to do this weekend? I don't know. Well, you know what? Step Brothers just came out, so let's go see that. You know what I mean? It's like the kind of thing that fulfills a very specific need that I think maybe as moviegoers we took for granted.
I think so.
I like this actor, so I imagine that I'm willing to pay my money and sit in like for 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm a fan. Even if I don't love it, like it was something again to do on like a Saturday night and like with like family or friends or something.
Would you allow a sequel
to Step Brothers?
Yeah. Would you allow? I mean, actually, yeah. Would you allow? I'm
putting my foot down
that
now.
word.
I think
agree.
I'll put my foot down. No, because you know what? Here's the case in point: Anchorman 2, not good. Didn't work, and it was obviously a cash grab.
I was devastated. I really wanted to see it, and I remember there was only one part that I thought was genuinely funny, and it was when Will Ferrell goes blind, but he starts like confusing how like he thinks that now all of his senses somehow have like gone, and he's like, I'm blind. I brushed my teeth with a live lobster, and people are like, couldn't you have like felt the claws? He's like, I'm blind.
Yeah, there were some moments where I like chuckled a bit, but the movie as a whole just felt completely pointless, right? Even if I did laugh here and there. An even more extreme example, Zoolander 2, one of the worst comedies I have ever seen, which is
it wasn't worth
such a shame because I fucking love the first Zoolander movie.
Oh, that's...
So yeah, don't make a sequel to Step Brothers.
I tried to get I really enjoy Coming to America, and then I'm like, I'll watch Coming to America 2. I really could only get through 40 minutes of it.
Really?
And I'm like, I'm on board like the Eddie Murphy comeback train. Oh wait, did you enjoy it?
Oh, we haven't seen it.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying really is.
No, I had high hopes for it, so it's disappointing
No,
to hear.
yeah, I mean, maybe you could get through the whole rest of it, but I think a lot of at least comedies sequels that are coming out now, it's like I enjoyed Borat 2.
I'm thinking of Dumb and
Sure.
Dumber, the most recent one.
Dumb and Dumber 2.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2 did not look. I didn't even bother seeing that. And actually, I also want to make a quick point. I feel like Step Brothers, kind of in a few ways, is like an updated version of Dumb and Dumber, because you have basically like two very like immature dumb characters who are constantly doing crazy things. And even if you think about the cast, you have like one guy who is known as a comedic powerhouse, and you have another guy who actually was previously known mostly for dramatic roles, but actually steps into the comedic role really well, and then they have really great chemistry. So like, maybe a double feature if you want to have like, a night of comedies, Dumb and Dumber and Step
I'd do
Brothers.
that.
This movie was made at the right time with the right people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, like for me, it grew on me, but the more I think about it, it is a very likable movie. But critics at the time thought it could be a bit mean-spirited. I read that a bit through the critiques, and I kind of see that a bit. I feel like it's so heightened that it comes off as ridiculous, but I can see how that sort of like when they get beat up by the kids, like I think it is funny in hindsight, but at first it just comes off as sort of like nasty. Like what? Like why are these kids so mean? These kids are so aggressive.
I remember we were talking about like how it wasn't even the kid. Like I felt so bad for like the parents and also Adam Scott's wife, Catherine Hahn. Like their lives were awful.
Oh yeah.
And I was gonna say I especially liked the second introduction we get to Adam Scott when he's telling the story about going fishing, and he's like talking about like the bonita fish, and and John C. Reilly's like, "Are the bonita fish big?" And his dad's like, "You shut up! You're ruining the story." And Adam Scott's like, "No, I'll answer it. They're actually called a trophy fish, so
Yeah.
they're kind of big." And he says, "I'm like,
Yeah, they're kind of
douchey as
And then he
way.
loses his place in the story, and the dad loses it. I'm like, damn it, I told you not to interrupt.
Loses his place in a story that you really don't need to lose your place.
No. But I can kind of see that. The one thing I do have to say, like 13 years later now, the one thing that I don't think really holds up as well is there are some like homophobic jokes that don't play as well all the years down the line. I'm not saying, as a gay man, I'm not really like personally offended, but like there are some times when I'm like, ooh, like it seems like they're hitting this note a little too much, like the kids are like, oh, is this your butt buddy? And then even like the brother, like says it like there's like there are some like gay jokes around there, and I get it, like they're immature, but like it's a little like questionable. Like is it the movie being immature or the characters being immature? I'm not quite sure.
There were also a couple of hard R's in there.
Yeah.
I will.
I'd say.
I don't want to I'm not defending the movie, but I just finished. I think my last quarantine watch of this quarantine of How I Met Your Mother. No, I just watched, did my rewatch of How I Met Your Mother, and that also, I think a lot of things in the 2000s, even our favorite stuff has, from The Office to 30 Rock, has those kind of jokes. And you can all throw them in the umbrella of like, we love them, and it does not stand the test of time very well.
Yeah, another one, Superbad. As much as
boy.
I still think that's a good movie, like, they definitely throw around some
Even
words
40-Year-Old
that didn't age
Virgin.
well.
I mean, like they have that whole scene where they like say like, how I know you're gay.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, again, it's of the time, and they just, I'm not saying people should like boycott these movies or anything, but it just probably is not something they would do now. basically.
We were just watching. There's I'll have to send it to you, but there's a video where it's
So
like
good.
a person watching a movie that they love from like the 2000s. Like, oh, this is like my favorite, and they get like through 2 scenes where it's just like all of the worst things, and it's all like the greatest hits of what you would expect doesn't age well from the 2000s.
Yeah, it's so good.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man, yeah, I'm sure. Like, yeah, again, like I said, I have nostalgia for these 2000s comedies. But yeah, I'm sure like not all of them, when you revisit them, will hold up as well. Like, actually, years ago, I revisited one from the year 2000 itself, beginning of that decade. Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh boy.
I really liked it when I was 9. Right? As a 9-year-old, I thought it was really funny. And then I rewatched it a few years ago, and I'm like, this is
Yeah, you watched it with
awful.
me.
So
We watched it
bad.
together.
Nice.
It was so
I
bad.
always say that I feel like The Hangover is a funnier version of Dude, Where's My Car? Because they're
Yes,
looking for
yes.
something that's with them basically the whole time, and they go on absurd
After a
adventures.
crazy night, after a crazy night out, they don't remember what they did. They have to retrace their steps, and of course, like they whoa, what did we do last night? So much partying, and all this crazy stuff happened. So that one, yeah, definitely did not age well at all. I think you had to be like 9 or 10 to enjoy it.
Sounds right.
And then yeah, it's funny. Then you mentioned The Hangover, which is a similar concept that comes at the end of the 2000s, 2009. And I kind of, as much as I kind of like The Hangover, I felt like it started this trend in comedies I did not like, which was comedies were just like things escalated way out of control. And it was kind of less about the characters and more just about like the chaos, right? And that was kind of like Game Night. We mentioned that too, like Game Night, but like terrorists get involved. Like, what? Okay, like there's another one, Office Christmas Party, and then there's also like a kidnapping thing and guns involved and stuff.
What
Like
was
whoa,
the,
whoa,
like,
whoa,
Seth
like what?
Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Anthony Mackie.
Oh,
The Christmas movie.
yeah, the Christmas one. Yeah, that one escalates too. So I'm
Barb and
like,
Star too.
Barb and Star.
Yeah.
I was, when you guys were saying Game Night, I was thinking The House. Is it with Amy Poehler and Will Ferrell? That one also goes insane.
Yeah, where they like have to they turn their house into like an illegal casino.
How
or
was
something.
that?
I think like the first time I saw it, I remember thinking the trailer didn't look good, so I had low expectations. And usually when I go into a movie with low expectations, it outperforms it. And I remember thinking that
okay.
it was still pretty dumb, but there were a couple things in there where I was like, that's not bad.
No, a movie like that does sound good on paper. And I remember looking at the cast list. I think like Jason Mantzoukas is like the third lead in that. I'm just realizing that I missed a lot. I missed a lot of like Will Ferrell's 2010 movies. I haven't seen Get Hard or the one. If that's the one he did with Kevin Hart. I didn't see that. I didn't see either the Daddy's Homes. I didn't see.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah, the one where he's like the stepdad.
I didn't see, and that's. I'm not. No, I find Will Ferrell to be hilarious. I actually think he's one of the best like late night guests you can have on a show, especially with Conan. But yeah, no, I feel like those. I just didn't come on my radar at all.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that those movies don't have like the same comedic potential, but it just kind of seemed like when you look at his career, like the 2000s were his time. And we also mentioned, like, just again that whole group's time. Him and Ben Stiller. We talked about Ben Stiller on our previous week's episode because they were, again, part of a similar sort of like frat pack.
Who's the next comedic actor we'll do a deep dive of? Will it be
We'll
you,
do Owen
Jim
Wilson.
Carrey? I actually was doing a deep dive of Jim Carrey yesterday, just going like, wow, he had a really good. He was the powerhouse of the '90s.
Of the 90s, yeah.
Like grand slam each movie, even the bad ones.
Yeah. Well, they all made tons of money. Then, like, here comes like Will Ferrell and Ben Stiller, and actually, so not just Seth Rogen's like crew in the 2010s, but you also had like Melissa McCarthy coming out with a bunch of big movies. because she broke out in Bridesmaids. So like she definitely was like a big comedic name then. But then I feel like in the last few years it's been mostly more like indie movies, like you mentioned.
But I gotta throw in, I loved Spy with her and Rose
Yeah,
Byrne.
I thought
Spy's
Spy
great.
was Spy's
great.
That surpassed my expectations. Actually,
I was blown away. And now she got that.
I thought that was hilarious.
That new one coming out with Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer, and Jason Bateman's going to be in there. I'm getting strong head shakes.
Which one is that?
Thunder Force.
No. I feel like Melissa McCarthy sometimes does these movies that I'm just like, no. Like there's one where like I feel like you kind of even forget they exist. But she did. I remember seeing a trailer where like James Corden's her AI.
Oh yeah.
And I yeah. I
did that come
I think
out?
the whole. Who knows? The world said no.
Didn't think it was
and I think
funny.
Melissa McCarthy is also hilarious. But yeah, no. Some of these movie choices from all these comedic actors can be pretty crappy.
Well, I think the biggest fault that so many comedy movies have is that sometimes they rely too much on the comedic actor to make the material funny when it's not funny to begin with.
Yes.
Right? So, like, and that can happen to any comedic actor, right? Because it's like you just think he'll make it work or she'll make it work. So, like, again, like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, like Holmes and Watson. Well, they were great together in Step Brothers, so they should be great together in this, right?
I kind
like,
of thought
not
that's
the case.
what happens. I know I'm going to get disagreement, but I kind of thought that's what happened in this movie. I didn't think there was much of a plot. I thought they were just like, you guys are hysterical, do funny things, and
I think there's a. I think they did a very heavy. They did like a Curb Your Enthusiasm. They did a very heavy outline of how the story's going to go. Because I think the bloopers for this movie are also equally hilarious. And you can see that the editors had a lot to work with in terms of picking the best lines.
Well, yeah, like same thing from like Anchorman, for example. The credits showed a lot of those like second, third takes that are still funny, even though they weren't in the final cut. But, you know, with Step Brothers and also I think with like Anchorman, for example, neither movie really has much of a plot because it seems like even there's sort of a loose thread tying them together. Both movies are like a lot of just sequences, right, of things going on. So, you know, like in this movie you have like the interview sequences, you know, you have like the kids being the Mupp sequence, and yeah, they're in a specific order, but you can like just pick your favorite scenes and watch them, and they're, you know, maybe it can be just as good. Same thing like in Anchorman, like we all love like the big brawl in, you know, the alleyway with all the other news teams, right? Like at what precedes that and what it was after that in the movie, I can't remember offhand. You know, it all is kind of just like little vignettes of these characters getting into all sorts of crazy situations.
I do gotta say, I love at the end of Step Brothers when they beat up the kids, which is a really bad thing for me to say out loud. I am not gonna run for office anymore.
We have him on record saying
that. He likes it when you beat up kids. But
hey, I'll get the podcast more play, like he said on the Divided Films podcast.
Controversy
on
itself.
On obscure podcasts.
But when there's the one scene where they're back to back and they're like spinning in the air and kicking the kids, and then like white doves fly out of nowhere. I love that.
The John Woo effect.
I liked when they're the ones getting beat up by the kids. There's the one funny shot of them both under the seesaws and the kids like taking turns like sitting on them. Like at what point in this fight does that happen? Like I don't know. It just happens at some point.
Also, like I even though they're beating up kids, it's a movie where like it's so absurd. I bet it was a great day on set for the whole like. Just
right.
like what they could come up with in the moment and stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It's in this world. It exists in this world that they established that like I'm not offended by two grown men beating up children. They just have like established this is just a crazy world filled with crazy people.
Going on, so I was gonna say, first of all, like when I was rewatching that, like it seemed like all of the all of the kids that they were hitting, like when you watched it back, it was like these are all clearly like just short adults in like kid wigs, which like makes sense because that must be a really hard thing to try to film.
Yeah.
And then secondly,
Yeah, right.
Will Ferrell must really. I'm trying to get you all the controversial clicks. But Will Ferrell really must like the comedy of beating up kids because in the campaign he punches a baby.
No, that's right.
That's right.
And the puppy, the dog from The Artist.
That's not funny.
You went too far.
Kids,
Wow.
babies. Okay, I have my limits.
Adorable dogs. That's, no. There's no place for that.
You know what, Colleen? You'll be invited back on the podcast, but I don't know about Kyle.
Problematic.
Yeah, so this this is just I don't know, I would say this movie would be like the perfect one though to talk about Will Ferrell, just because I feel like even though it's maybe not your favorite one, it seems to be like the peak of Will Ferrell's like comedic style. You know what I mean?
I could definitely see that.
And maybe you might prefer him more balanced out with like other actors or in other situations, but I think again this movie has a big, I would say, cult following. The people who love this movie really love it.
Yes.
And they keep going back to it over and over again.
I was gonna say I will absolutely like post this interview on like my Facebook group, but I'm like afraid that I might lose some friends when they hear that I'm not giving it rave reviews because my friends
Watch out,
love
man.
this movie.
And I'm happy to become friends with those people.
You can be replaced.
Well, certainly when his father and I split, that was difficult for him. And this one time when Brennan was 17 and Derek was 14, and Brennan decided to enter a talent show.
He sang a song from an old pirate musical. But Derek got his football buddies to replace the choir and sing
Brennan Has a Mangina.
Brennan has a mangina. Brennan has a mangina.
Finally, the audience and even some of the nastier parents started singing Brennan Has a Mangina.
And I have to admit, for a little while, I sort of joined in as well.
So I think now we can just sum up how we feel about this movie and then give our scores and see where we side with. I feel like this might be this can go either way. I feel like I'm not sure where we're gonna land between audiences and critics. So let's find out. Let's start with Colleen. What would be your score for Step Brothers?
Oh man, I have to give a percentage, huh?
That's right.
50.
Right down
50.
the middle.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
here's my thing. I love dumb comedy. I love it. But I need a plot for them to like play off of and be clever. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Like it's 50% because I like enjoyed watching it. I was entertained watching it, but I'm not like, oh man, we gotta rewatch this anytime soon. Whereas like
that's not an insane. I mean, that's not you're close to the critics.
Yeah.
Even the audience score is 69. Like that's not
Right.
insane.
Yeah, it's like it's very fun to watch them, but I think, and I saw one critic say basically the exact same thing I said. Like, this should have been an SNL sketch that would have been amazing, but instead it's like 90 minutes long.
Yeah, that is a folly. That is a criticism of many like SNL inspired movies or movies with
That
SNL
makes
cast
sense.
members, right? All right, so 50 for Colleen. What about Kyle?
I was gonna say 40, but then when you said 50, I'm like, I feel like an even out would be nice. So I'm gonna say 45%.
Ooh.
Oof. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So similar to what you said, JJ. I like a plot. I like a movie like you can keep it incredibly absurd, and the plot can be incredibly dumb. That's actually like my favorite type of movie, where the plot is just like full of random coincidences that clearly would never happen in real life. But this one, it seemed like nothing was really like going on for a while, and they were just doing
shtick.
Yeah, just like silly things, but it really did just seem like it was. They said John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell like just be insane with each other, whereas like
Right.
even something absurd like The Campaign or Anchorman, like they put them in like absurd scenarios, and then they had to be like the characters in those scenarios.
Okay, so you think maybe like in those movies they gave like them more to do, right? Like there's more of an objective or more of like a circumstance for their characters to play off of.
Yeah, they didn't just have to be nut jobs themselves. Like in those movies, they were put in like crazy situations, and then they said, "How would a nut job act in this crazy situation?"
Yeah. Okay.
But
I get
but
that.
also, I just want to say, Will Ferrell likes eating animal poop and beating up children.
Yeah.
It's very clear from these
Apparently. Those are his signature, like, comedic touches.
that's the Campaign, that's this, and that's Anchorman.
All right, I guess I got it. All right, Step Brothers fans, put down your pitchforks. No, I would like to do a list of like my favorite Will Ferrell movies and performances. I've never thought to ever do that. I like to think that this would be in my top 10. I do think it ranks higher than Campaign. Maybe Campaign would be an honorable mention. Who knows? Anchorman is probably in the top 3. That movie. Yeah. I think what's special is about Anchorman a bit. He's playing a character doing these absurd situations, and this one, him and John C. Reilly are just basically themselves, like exaggerated, spoiled brat version of themselves. But I love this movie. It hits all the right notes, humor-wise, where it wants to go, like absurd, non sequitur. From Richard Jenkins, Adam Scott, Catherine Hahn, I just want to roll you up into a little ball and shove you in my vagina. I quote this movie a lot. Rob Riggles, boo!
Yeah.
I love it. 82.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for like a quick thing on the supporting cast members that we didn't get to real quick. We went on quite a bit last week about Catherine Hahn, about how we think she's like, a really great comedic actress, and she was an Anchorman in like a very bit part, and then she was in this where she kind of like grew more, and then I think for those of us who watched Parks and Rec, we know her as that campaign manager, right? So she's good in this. I feel like this might have been like a good like step forward for her.
This is where people started to really notice her,
to recognize her, and then also Richard Jenkins is one of those actors who's been in like tons of stuff as these sort of secondary characters or supporting characters, but maybe he's never been in the spotlight himself. But I kind of enjoy him being like the straight man in this, and I don't know, he's somehow able to make the misery enjoyable to watch.
He wants to be a Tyrannosaurus. He wanted to be a Tyrannosaurus. He's not that straight in it. Like, he wanted to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Being. That never could have happened.
There was, when he's like, it's Christmas, and he's like, I'm going to Cheesecake Factory.
Of all the places to go, he goes to the Cheesecake Factory. I don't know. That cheesecake. That randomness. It's just,
I feel like that scene could be played as like kind of depressing because it's like clearly this family is falling apart, but the fact that he chooses Cheesecake Factory and the way he just sells it, I don't know, Richard Jenkins, like he just knows what he's doing. When I first saw this movie, I probably would have given it like similar to you guys. I would give it like mid-50s, but again, it's grown on me, and not my favorite Will Ferrell movie or performance, but I think it's one maybe I'll go back to a little more often than I would have before. So I think I will give this a 70%. So I think we're going to be close to the middle there.
Ooh.
Yes.
61.75.
Wow. So let me look at these scores here.
I don't even know how. I'll let you once again.
We are really close in the middle here. We are 61 point what?
75.
So like, okay, let's round up here. Let's round to a whole number. You don't have to get totally like scientific here, but 62%. That is literally right. That's 7% higher.
62% is the average between 55 and 69.
Jeez, right in between.
Wow.
Damn it, guys.
Sample size.
I think we both agree. I don't even know how to score this.
Well, I'll tell you this. In the past, like in previous, like I usually go by like the numeric, like where our, because like it's like spectrum, right? 0 to 100. You have the audience needle, the critics needle, and wherever our needle is to is closer, regardless of that kind of like 60% fresh threshold, you know? Like for example, if the critics are at 59, we're at 61, and audiences are at like 100, that's still closer to the critics, right? Yeah. But since this is an even tie, I do have to go to a tiebreaker, which is that threshold of 60% or higher is fresh, lower is rotten. We are higher, it is a fresh, and that is on the same side as the audience. So, you know, I kind of had to go through like, I don't know, divided films bylaws, I guess.
This is what when the people on Survivor do when they don't know, like, you know, it's like.
I mean, unless one of you guys has an immunity idol you want to play to like void one of our scores.
We gave one to Kyle last time.
Dang it, I trusted you, Kyle, and now you're using this immunity idol against me. But alas, there are no twists on divided films, at least not yet, not until we're desperate. But for now...
We gotta do an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh, yes. I think he does have a couple of divided movies.
He's one of the kings.
If you do The Happening, I would love to do that.
Yeah, that one, even like the most recent one, Glass, I believe, is divided.
Shattered. But
anyways, for the Step Brothers, we are officially siding with, by a hair, by technicality, the audience. But even though you guys are like, you know, more negative about it, I still think like this is like the sentiment overall, right? Like
there's still definitely
enjoying
a soft
it.
spot. I still appreciate it.
You're not loving it. Yeah, exactly. You don't love it, but you know, you did find some like enjoyment out of it, which is like a lot of people. It's just, you know, none of us are one of the big diehard fans.
This is a good film. Hey, Joaquin Phoenix apparently is one of the big diehard. This is his favorite movie.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, that was what I found out during my research. Yeah.
Dang, man. Well, I mean, yeah, that's interesting. Who knows who else out there is into it? I mean, you don't want the Joker on your ass, so watch out, Kyle.
I was gonna say when I was looking up like what were the movies before this that Will Ferrell was in, I forgot that he was in Austin Powers for a second.
That's right.
Oh.
He was in Austin Powers as
badly burnt.
what is it?
Mustafa.
It smells like almonds. That is not a good sign.
You shot me.
What was the character's name? Fez or something? Or like
I think it was Mustafa.
My name is Mustafa. I am the man who be killing you now.
Yeah, he had like
That's
the
right.
thing about being asked the question 3 times in a row.
Damn, 3 times.
Don't forget too.
That.
That was great, and he has to go into the whole line of questioning there. And then don't forget too, his first like starring comedic role, I think, was Night at the Roxbury.
Love that movie.
Chris Kattan. Now
Love
that
movie.
I think is also divided and also has a cult following.
I am part of that cult. I drank the Kool-Aid.
Can be maybe a follow-up to this one. So yeah. And you know, for all you Will Ferrell fans out there too, there's a really great making of the movie Elf, which speaks to how people like had doubted Will Ferrell's star power, and he showed them wrong. So check that out if you get a chance. Thanks to Colleen and Kyle for joining us again on the podcast.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Great seeing you guys, and you know, definitely again would like to have you on. Kyle, you've given negative scores both times you've been on the show, so I will try to find a movie that you will like.
I hate fun and happiness. So good luck.
That's why he dates me.
Interesting. All right. Well, that definitely makes it a challenge, but I'm up for it. But until then, guys, thanks again for listening, and join us again another time. Okay, thanks. Bye.